Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Center for Spiritual Living Ocala, this place of love, light, and learning. I am Donna Davis. I'm one of the practitioners here at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. And I am going to be joined by some of the other people that go to our center. Right now, we're just sending a big shout out to Reverend Cindy Grimes, who is in the car right now, headed back from Miami. So, what's up? Also, another big shout out to Erin. It's her birthday. Happy birthday, Erin! Yay! And also to Lita, who had a birthday, I think, 2 days ago. So happy birthday, Lita! All right, so we're going to be diving in. Thank you so much. I know there's a ton of different places you could be, and the fact that you're here with us, we really, really appreciate you. So let's go ahead and get started. Thank you so much to Rich for doing the clicking for me. All right, so Center for Spiritual Living Ocala, we have some values, and the first of those is spiritual growth and practice. And that means that, you know what, we believe that it does take practice. And the only way for growth to happen is if you keep doing the things over and over and over again. A new habit is not formed unless you do that. And so we do it together. So spiritual growth and practice. And then, of course, love. Hello. Love is the basis of everything that we do. And so, we come up from that degree of love that says that all of us are valid, and appreciation is the same thing, and community. So even though we are separated right now because of this pandemic, we are not gathering as a center, but you know what? We're still in community with each other. And that is what's so important for me personally. I need that when I travel. And of course, freedom, personal freedom, religious freedom, all of those things to be able to dive in and pick stuff apart. We love that we are able to have that freedom. Creativity, uh, hello, the universe is creative, and so are we because we're a part of it. So we definitely celebrate our community, our creativity. Health and wholeness is our birthright, so we celebrate that as well. Generosity, what I give to humanity and what humanity gives back to me, is just so important. And of course, you can't forget this part, financial well-being. Without that, you tend to have a little bit of strain in your life. So we want to help you get to that point where you have time, money, freedom. And so that is what we're about. So welcome, welcome. Our mission is to provide spiritual tools for personal and global transformation. You know, once you get into that point of connectivity with divine energy and start to recognize your part in the world, then that's when you have personal transformation. And all we need is a bunch of people awake and transformed to then have global transformation. So that is why our mission is so important. Our purpose is to awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence. We are all magnificent. And so we just want to remind you that we are that great one all together, coming up and realizing our importance in the world. And our vision is the same as the global vision of Center for Spiritual Living, and that is a world that works for everybody. It means it works for me, it works for you, it works for our neighbors, it works for people who don't think like me, and then all of us can exist together in this beautiful, beautiful world that we call our home. So thank you so much for joining us. And at this time, I'm going to be inviting my beautiful wife, Norma Anderson, who is in a different space, and she's going to be coming in and doing our invocation for today's talk and conversation. So Norma, where are you, honey? Come on down. Oops. Hi. I'm trying to click. Rich is clicking. So there's a little bit of a delay, everybody. So thank you for your patience.
Here I am.
Hi,
I
there
made
she is. So she's going to be praying us on today. Norma, thank you so much for joining us and for doing this for me. I really, really salute you. So let's get centered, everyone.
Yes. Let's take a deep breath. And as we center ourselves, relax into the knowing that there is but one undeniable, all knowing, living, loving, sentient being. And I know that I am one with this power, the wisdom of the one. The all abundance of divine source also is mine. And just as I know this divine spark runs through me, I know that it is true of everyone on this call and everyone in the sound of my voice. God's love abounds as we display love in and through every thought and deed that we have. Especially today on this Palm Sunday, when we reflect on the Christ within ourselves. I'm grateful to know that the panel of these wise people that are joining you today, Miss Donna, are here as a representation of the whole also. And also, I'm grateful that we're able to still meet and enjoy spiritual conversation in these difficult times. So, with this gratitude, I release this into the law that is always working. It's always working in our behalf. And with the law and God with us, nothing can be against us. So release this into this law, knowing that it is already done. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you so much, Norma, for getting us into that space and getting ready to get into this conversation with each other. So I'm very excited. Thank you. Thank you. So I would like to read now an article that Center for Spiritual Living, Reverends Joe and Tony Niemiec on May 26, 2020, sent this out for Easter and Religious Science. So I just wanted to read this article because I believe that it really spoke to what our take is on Easter. And I know that Norma said Palm Sunday, but today is Easter, which is one of the biggest celebration and holy days for the Christian faith. And because we're Centers for Spiritual Living, we embrace all religions. So today we are celebrating with all of those who are out there having fun and connecting to the resurrection that's been happening within the Christian community. So it says here, what's your take on Jesus Christ as the Son of God and dying on the cross to save us from our sins? Please remember that asking one religious scientist is like asking one Christian what they believe. I have a sister that truly believes in the virgin birth as historic and Christian friends that love the story but see it very differently. Religious scientists see Jesus as Jesus the Christ. Christ is a title which identifies a state of consciousness that Jesus, the man, evolved into. Sin is considered being off the mark or out of sync with our innermost soul. Jesus, the Christ, is seen as the great teacher and example, and also the great way shower. Yes, he is the Son of God who embodies his Father. As metaphysicians, we see all beings as sons and daughters of God. Each of us are the beloved in form, so spirit or God may know itself at this level of consciousness. The whole Easter story is beautiful. From entering Jerusalem to the resurrection itself, we understand the story to be an allegoric teaching. Entering the city is the individual soul evolving from being totally in the physical, humbly taking our place as master of ourselves. Throwing the money changers out of the temple exemplifies overturning tradition and speaking our own truth. The Garden of Gethsemane, going into the garden, that beautiful place within in which we commune with the sacred. The crucifixion is the death of the ego. The resurrection is the resurrection of the individual into a higher state of consciousness. This is an extremely short explanation of how the Easter story is seen within, but these are numerous talks and about the evolution of the self and humankind. We believe that there are many paths to God or the truth, and that what you believe is true for you, works for you. So today, hundreds and millions of people around the world celebrate the resurrection of Jesus the Christ. We at Centers for Spiritual Living celebrate and appreciate Jesus as the great example rather than the great exception. Join us today as we discuss our stories of Jesus, resurrection, and our role as practitioners of revolutionary love. So I am ready now to bring in the rest of our panel. And here they are. Hi, Corinne. How are you?
Hi, good, Donna. How are you?
I am fabulous. Hi,
Wonderful.
Lita. How are you
Lita!
today?
Oh,
Happy
she's on mute.
birthday.
Hello, how are you?
Happy birthday.
right.
And hi, Ted. How you doing?
Oh,
Hello,
there's
everyone.
Ted. I love that you're here.
Welcome, welcome. Talk about 4 different ways of looking at the resurrection story, looking at our connection to the one, and how this embodiment of the Christ consciousness is coming through revolutionary love, as we have been discussing revolutionary love, the single story. We talked about the single story in the past, and how we can, have the death to the ego. We did have the crucifixion that just happened, and now we are rising out of that death part to what's next. Well, here we are. And you all know I'm very passionate about your Phoenix is rising. Hello. What
Yes,
more
hello.
Phoenix moment is there, right?
Perfect. Exactly.
An example of how Jesus the Christ showed us that there was no fear around death and dying, and how we can just step forward from that. So, yay, very exciting. So, let's dive into the question, shall we? Many of us in
Sure.
this thought grew up with single stories about Jesus and Christianity that didn't serve us. That's why we're here at CSL and not, at somewhere else. Is there a part of that Christian Easter story that has served you on your spiritual path? And if so, what is it? And what do you love about Jesus? And how has the example of the Christ impacted your life? So, who would like to take that on first? And just give us a little brief synopsis of what your past experience with the resurrection story has been. I can go, take
Go
it
for
first.
it.
I had been raised in the Christian faith as Church of God and then as Pentecostal. And within our faith, the resurrection was a very powerful example of getting past that thing. They said, I'm going to destroy you. And Jesus was like, yeah, sure, you can destroy this, but I can bring it back like that. Big deal. And it was that was saying that he had power over death itself. I felt that was the very last thing that people were afraid of. And Jesus said, don't be afraid. We have power over death itself. And that was that feeling of stepping from the thing that killed us completely to now saying, I conquered it. And so I had that really ingrained into me, and the joy around the resurrection story has always been there, and it still is, even as CSL. And I took that as, you know what, no matter what you've done to me, it couldn't be worse than being crucified. It can't be worse than that. And if
Yeah.
he can come back and say, there's a smile on my face, then I can come back from whatever, has burnt me in the past to bring me forward and say that I too can use that great example. And that's why my past has served me. And even now, and still in CSL, it serves me.
Beautiful, Donna. I'll go ahead and pick up there then. Thanks for getting that started. It's a loaded question, but real quick, my history is I was raised in the Catholic Church, and the Easter, the resurrection, was always just a special time and full of tradition. And one thing, just kudos to the Catholic Church for really having beautiful rituals. So I did always enjoy that growing up. And as I got older, what the resurrection came to represent for me was similar to what you're saying, Donna. The ability to overcome, and also renewal. That regardless of where you are, you have this. Every day is a new day. Really, almost every day is like the resurrection, right? We have another chance. Every morning we open our eyes, we have another chance. And actually having these thoughts is kind of what brought me out of the Catholic Church, because many of the things I believed weren't in line with the doctrine of the church. And and I still have family members that are very devout Catholics, and that's wonderful, but it was no longer serving me. And really, in order to respect the people in the church, it was best for me to go in a different direction. And so that's what I did. And honestly, once I stepped out of those parameters that are put on you, with the church, and I had my own thoughts and thinking about the resurrection and kind of what Donna, as you were saying, that this body, you do what you want, but it will always be there. So my soul, I knew that not Jesus wasn't the exception. He was the example. And so what he did, we all can do. We have this ability. We are eternal, and just pulled the lid off of my spirituality, and it just has expanded so much. And so now the resurrection story is very different from what it was as a child, but just as beautiful, if not more beautiful.
Oh, I've got to touch on that because I love that you said exactly what I was thinking. Also a cradle Catholic here. And I have to say that when, in Revelations, and Revelations was in the Science of Mind magazine, I was so excited to see that. Behold, I make all things new, that we are renewing. But the other thing I knew that Jesus said is that this too, you can do greater things than this will you do. So could you imagine the faith that he knew? This is just a small part that I can do, but all of you can do.
Yes.
Great things will you do. So in the renewing of our minds, of our souls, of our bodies, of our spirit, that's what it is about for me today. And growing up, I knew there was something more. I knew that there was something that was not so much missing, but that needed to be added to the faith that I had, that Jesus did walk here. And he was the example of who we can be and what we could do. So for me, this day, it's all about that, about the I am. I am that. Could you imagine? I am that. So thank you. That really, Corinne, that touched me. That's exactly what I was thinking when you said it. I was like, oh, great minds.
Exactly.
Can I keep flowing then right off of later?
Yeah.
Each one. So I was raised Southern Baptist and then chose to join the Catholic Church after having studied biblical archaeology in the Middle East, and really, as you said, the real the job the church did to try to capture the mysteries of what the universe of has done and put it in some sort of liturgical, calendar, physical, logistics basis so that it could pass time. Let's face it, it's got its problem, but 2,000 years it has, watch this word, striven or strived to keep the core mystery available to everyone. And I suppose also in that journeying, we've talked about the literal and the allegorical. And I had the chance to actually go and walk the streets of Jerusalem and study archaeology with experts, to go to the places that were supposed to be all the biblical locations, and then begin to be shown, well, maybe not. And that begins to place, some doubt in the minds of a young person or young people. Well, we're standing right where Jesus was crucified, aren't we? or maybe we're not.
Exactly.
At first seemed to be shaking my world. It actually shook open, of course, the box, and the marbles started to roll around going, wait a second. there's something here where meaning cannot be tied to that rock or that street or that viewpoint. That in fact, this universal mystery of the Christ through whom all things were made, if we want to say that, can be seen metaphysical and the physical and the quantum of the entire universe being the first outbreathing of the sentient God that said, let it all be made. And I call that the Christ.
And isn't it true also that for me, that this is holy ground? It is all holy ground.
Absolutely.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And my thought is this. I don't know how much record keeping was done back then, that people can say, oh, we know exactly that it happened this day, at this time, because, and then of course the stories were the stories, and we are assuming that the stories were recorded well. We're assuming that but we all know how it
It's
works.
like
So
playing telephone. I'm going to play, it's like playing
Right.
telephone. The story gets,
Right.
yeah.
right. So the next
Right.
question was, what do you love about Jesus? Here's what I love about Jesus. No matter where you go and who you are, you can say, you know what? I think I might have liked that guy. You know,
Oh,
he just
I
seemed
think
like a
so.
really cool dude that was walking around teaching people about love, connecting, walking down the line that says, hey, you can be a rich guy, you can be a poor beggar. We can all hang out and learn the same stuff together. He was just the kind of person that I could see myself inviting to my home to sit down, have a meal. Tell me what's going on in your mind. Show me. How are you connecting? Because that's the thing. It's the separation from the one, the seemingly separation from the one that's happening. But Jesus, when he became the Christ, was like, wait, hold on. Me and the Father are one.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then all the power of the entire universe is me. Holy mackerel. Which means nothing can touch me.
He said holy mackerel.
Holy
Yeah, he was a fisher. He would fish.
He was a fisherman.
holy fish.
He was a fisherman.
And that way he became the Christ. Once he lined up, became the Christ. So that's a big deal. We had somebody ask me about saying Jesus the Christ, as opposed to just saying Jesus Christ. Like some people thought Jesus Christ is his last name. And it wasn't. It's Jesus the Christ, who became the Christ from Jesus of Nazareth once he embodied that, which was the epitome of connection to the oneness. And then he became the Christ. And that's that Christ consciousness that we all have within us.
Yes.
As we start to get connected to, oh my gosh, this is the one, we can then connect to our Christ consciousness. That comes forward. Now, I can't hold it as long as Jesus did. I might feel it in like this moment. 2 seconds from now, it might be gone.
But isn't, yes.
Correct. Oh, questions from the
I know.
audience.
Something just popped in.
Yes. And Ted,
All
you
right.
were going to say something, Ted. So while we get those questions, what were you going to say, Ted?
I was basically going to say, build what Donna said, that when Jesus said, I and the Father are one, and Donna then so eloquently indicated what that meant. But then if we go back to the time when apostles asked Jesus, Rabbi, teach us how. He didn't say,
Pray.
he prayed to my Father, and
Right.
preachers how. He said, everybody ready, our Father. And I think
Yeah.
Oh no, we're losing.
We're
Ted.
losing you.
Ted, I can't
We're
hear
losing
you.
your volume.
Do you have headphones?
It's popping in and out.
Okay, sorry, my internet signal says strong. Is that okay? Is that better?
Yeah,
Yeah.
stay
Yes,
close to the mic.
Oh,
Okay.
I think that's it. Maybe you got too far.
So I was just going to say that he said, our Father is the way we pray. And that just tells it all in 2 words. It isn't somebody else's, I'm not better than you, I'm not different than you. And as Leda said, when he basically said, go into the world and do all that I do and more. Well, we do that and say that unless we could and were.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
agree. And that's why I think, oh, I'm sorry, Lita.
Oh, no, go ahead.
But, Donna, you said you would love to have, Jesus over for dinner. I would too, because that's how I see him. And when I see him as, the great example rather than the great exception, I picture him, number one, he is my wonderful teacher. And he is like my older brother that I could go to for his wisdom. And he'd just sit me down and go, Corinne, wow, you really got that wrong, and just, and help me do better and help me, because I knew I could aspire to his connection. Like you said, Donna, you could hold it for a couple minutes, and it's hard to constantly be there. But isn't that something to aspire to, rather than the story that I grew up with was, he's here and you can't get anywhere close to that. You're always down here.
Exactly.
And it almost, I don't know, it's so much more beautiful knowing we could aspire to get to that level of Christ consciousness, to be
Absolutely.
one with the universe, one with the creator, the breath, of creation.
Mhm.
Wow. I think
Yeah,
I see that
and
as a beautiful thing.
and there were lessons in the disciples also, because we are that doubting Thomas. We
Yeah.
are, the one who would betray. And who do we betray? But we betray ourselves, We betray ourselves from being able to lead that life and to be able to understand the power that we have within. How often do we try to do something and say, well, I don't really believe it, but let me touch you first. Let me feel if this is right. This is what we do to ourselves. So Jesus Christ just knew what he knew, and he spoke it without any doubt in his mind. When he spoke, it was the truth, and he knew that. And when we speak, we go, we hope that's right.
Yes, and you know what else he did that is super cool? Okay, one of my favorite things about Jesus is he loved everybody.
Mm.
He
It didn't matter.
would have dinner with the tax collector, who was the bad. Sorry for all the tax collectors out there, but back in the day, I guess that was a really bad thing. And I don't really want to touch on, they say prostitutes, but let's get it straight.
Yeah.
I know this is about Jesus, but Mary Magdalene was actually not a prostitute. I just want to make that clear. She was actually his spiritual and intellectual equal, and so I'm going to take that off the table. But he may have had dinner with other prostitutes. I don't know, but Mary Magdalene herself was the divine feminine. So let's maybe talk about. I might be going off topic a little bit, but the resurrection. We're in a new time. I think something else needs to be resurrected, and I see that as the divine feminine, and I think Christ embraced that.
Yes.
I do believe he did, and it kind of got changed a little bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, the thing I love the most about him, honestly, is that he was not, like you were saying, Corinne, where he seemed to be this thing up here and we can't possibly aspire. That's why he was born in a manger. Had he been born in a palace, we'd be like, yeah, it's easy for you to say you were born in a palace, child. You got everything to you. The fact that he was born in a manger, that his parents were who they were, that it never says, oh, his father was this big shot anywhere, or his mama was an intellectual, whatever. These were humble people, and yet he was able to reach that ascension. So that means that any of us can get there. And that's the part there that I love. Reverend Rod is saying that, how do we get to see the truth in the midst of doubt and despair? What's the process of enlightenment to realize the Christ within, to lead to the rising of consciousness? And then Reverend Cindy says, he was the epitome of unconditional love.
Totally.
Rev God also said, the Christ as you, perfect human being, pressed out from the divinity within, we found and find ways to tell the same story about ourselves, journeying to ourselves, to be inside. So that unconditional love, right? When we talk about unconditional love, it's like unconditional love for you too.
Yes.
There's no conditions on, oh, well, let me just like this part of me and then not this part, because guess what? All of it's God expressing. You can't take out a part of you and say, oh, well, this arm right here, I'm going to set it down. It's an all thing. And so that's the piece there, that if we can get to that space of, wait a minute, the Father and I are one. Hold on. And we all know that the Father's perfection, right? How are you and the Father one, and the Father's perfection and you're not?
That's a wonderful point, Donna. Wonderful.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
and
it is.
says revolutionary love is the choice to enter into labor for others, for our opponents, and for ourselves in order to transform the world around us. It is not a formal code or prescription, but an orientation to life that is personal and political, rooted in joy. Do you see Jesus as practitioner and teacher of revolutionary love? Absolutely. Hello. In what ways? And where do you think he could be found today? And what would he be doing?
I have to say,
that's kind of an interesting thought. Where would Jesus be today?
Nancy Pelosi and a couple of referring to the Capitol building as sacred ground.
Yes.
Democracy. And I kept saying, oh, well, isn't that nice that we're hearing something about a sacredness and sacred ground later. So the thought came to mind when we were reviewing these questions, that why wouldn't Jesus be at the ultimate U.S. temple, in our case, talking as Americans, and stand right in that temple and overthrow some money changers and Citizens United and everything else that is blocking the emergence of complete oneness and unity and equality of. I mean, I would think right in the
Yeah.
middle of tossing them right out on their ears. Anyway,
Yeah, that's a good, but that's a
Totally.
great reference
Yeah,
of
it
tossing
is.
the money changers. You know, that's a great, that's a great.
I like that.
You know, that was, I think, wasn't that one of the few times, I think there were other occasions in the Bible where Jesus really showed a temper, you know, which I love because I've got a little bit of a temper and I'm thinking, hey, he can throw around some tables.
yeah.
I think, you know. So, but it's true, Ted. It's true.
Yeah.
He'd be tossing some tables, I think.
Yes. And I was just going to add to that sometimes I also, as we all do, battle with that anger, that same kind of response. And over the years, I've tried to justify myself and look at it from the view of calling it righteous indignation, which is different than just egoic anger or egoic pride, but just it's just indignant that you could take sacredness and trash it like that.
Right.
I agree.
Maybe
And you know, and Valerie Kaur says, you know, how do you labor for others? And I look at that as laboring for others because you know, when I look at everything that happens within the systems that we have in place right now and how it is marginalizing people, you know, I labor for them in my way, you know, the way that fits me best. You know, granted, everybody has their ways of doing things, and me through peace building is how I try to labor for others. But that's unconditional, you know, that's revolutionary love. And I really think Jesus would be all about that were he here today. I really don't think he'd be, you know, in an ivory tower and you know, a king or anything like that. I think he'd be in the streets laboring because he's equal with everyone here. So
Yeah. It's interesting because for me, I feel that he would be laboring for love in the trenches.
yeah.
Because let's face it, you know, the people who are in the ivory tower, I mean, even just looking at our country right now, those people are in a good position. You know, they have good jobs. They're doing their thing. They have a roof over their head. I think that Jesus would be in the streets with the people who are lined up trying to get food. He'd be in the car trying to get his COVID vaccine. You know, he would be in the front line. He would be a frontline worker. Let's face it.
Yes, he would be the ultimate frontline worker.
Yeah, let's see what the audience is saying and the input they have. I know that we have some people out there who'd like to share.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got Normal D, which is Norma. She's saying Jesus wouldn't do well today, even with some supposed Christians. And it's unfortunate because, yeah, I mean, he would be on that side, man, of that revolutionary love, and not everybody would want to be open to it. And then Rodney says, a broke carpenter speaking parables. Yeah. People be like, what you know? You broke anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, look what Norma also wrote. She said, many people worship Jesus' teaching, but have trouble embodying. So I truly believe he'd be greatly rejected. That's interesting. He'd get rejected all over again, just like he did, you know, back in the day.
But I was going to say this, it happened.
Would do it
We
to
have
me.
the same types of people.
We would do it
around,
again, yeah.
Who really believe that they're right and really, you know, in that non-moving, this is the rules, these are the laws, we never deviate. We have people who are like that. We have people who are like, it's about me and my family and about the money and how the more money I get, the more security I have. So I'm not giving that up for somebody who's not willing to work. Look at these beggars. They're not working. Why would I give them my hard-earned money? Why are you telling me to give my money away? Like that rich guy in the parable, correct? And that all these people exist now. And how would Jesus handle it? With love, I
Yes,
believe, with
I
love.
think so too.
And even when they were coming at him with all of that anger and all of that, frustration, he still stood. And the only thing he said, Father, forgive them.
They know
That's
not
the
what they do.
revolutionary love that just poured forward for him. Father,
Mhm.
forgive them.
You know, and
I
what
think
Norma's saying, many people worship Jesus' teaching, but have trouble in embodying it. So I truly believe he'd be greatly rejected. And isn't it sad in that statement that even with all that we know about Jesus Christ, that even to come in this day, that we still have that feeling there's be so many people who would reject this living spirit.
Mhm.
That we would yet again bring up another cross, I don't know that Jesus would come. There'd be too many crosses around. He goes, hey, I've been there,
Then they're done that.
Yeah.
Well, it's
yeah.
one of my favorite things to say when people come to me and they're like, I just feel like I have the burden of the world on my shoulders. I said, well, you know what? If Jesus could put the cross down, so can you.
Yes.
And there's times where I
Yes.
have to stop and say, do I want to be martyred for this cause? And if the answer is no, then I get myself off the cross. I'm like, you know what? I'm not trying to be martyred for anybody. There's that revolutionary love that says that you're important and so am I.
Yeah. And Ed Tansey's saying coming from love is the key.
Is the key.
Ultimately, that's the key, isn't it?
So, and Jesus said, this you'll do in my name, or this you'll do and greater things. So aren't we all, if we're all one, and that would make us one with creation, right? So one with Jesus. So aren't we all the embodiment of Christ consciousness? So Jesus is within us. He's here already. So, we don't need just one person to come in and make changes, right? I mean, that's what we're doing. We are the face of God that people see.
Mm-hmm.
What is that change?
Yeah.
What is that greater thing that you believe? And I always pose this out to everyone. What is that greater thing that you believe would help change the world? Because Jesus Christ changed the world, and in our beliefs. What is that greater thing that he sees in us that we can do?
Unconditional love.
Yes.
Unity. Go ahead, Ted.
I would just like to say, if we were to go back to the Catholic topic for a second and say, liturgy says, with him, in him, through him, in the unity of the Holy Spirit.
The Holy Spirit.
And if
Yes.
mathematical formula, with plus in plus through equals as. You can't be with.
I like that.
So the formula is there. It's right there.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
Ted, you preaching now.
Rev Rod also said, I truly believe there are more people in different religions who follow spiritual principles. However, the few, louder non-believers would still get crossed up and want to crucify the still small voice. And Reverend Ed said he saw the divinity in all. He also said coming from love is the key. Yeah. That really is the key, is the coming from love part.
Yes.
And the part I just want we've all talked about is if I was that
get closer. You're okay.
I would propose that we, as much as we can monitor ourselves as we're talking with enthusiasm, to talk about as love. And we talk about giving love, seeing love, experiencing love, but we've all talked about this before, saying, wait a minute, as love. Again, as I am it, I am that, I am it, I live as love. And when we can see the asness, then it begins to, I think, gently and persistently erode the blockages of ego. Because ego will fight something in another word, but as when it realizes, wait a minute, asness is what we are. We are love. That's not something to wait for, look for, go out and buy, pray for. We don't have to worship Jesus for it. Jesus, in fact, to a point earlier, never asked to be worshipped.
Exactly. Exactly.
Being in the trenches and doing the hard work, he never once said, worship me. This whole experience of being raised, all of us, in organizations that told us to bow down and worship Jesus kept us separate. He never asked me,
Right.
get up and worship my Father, the universe, the one, the source. And so, I think if we can say, wait a minute, I am the same as Jesus, and that is unconditional, complete, eternal, boundless love, and that's what I am, then it begins to help us dismantle our ego.
Yes.
Oh, I like
love
that.
I
Go ahead,
love
Rita.
that. And I love what Rodney says. Yes, love saves the day, divinely accepted yearning. I even took a snapshot of that. I said, divinely accepted yearning. How beautiful is that? And living aligned, living and looking and loving ourselves and others as Jesus Christ did creates the shift.
Yes.
Tara is also on. I'm a huge fan of Jesus. He was the epitome of love.
Yes.
Yeah.
One more. I'll be quiet and step back for a minute.
No,
But,
you're
need to.
good.
When we say a moment ago, what will change the world? What is it about Christ or this love that would change the world? And I think we could talk a little bit about the idea that we go around and tell ourselves and others, well, love others, love yourself. And I would propose the planet is exactly what's going on. We are loving others as we love ourselves. And we don't love ourselves very much, to Donna's earlier.
Great point.
And so if we could recognize ourselves as love and carry out that great teaching, we would
That's a
change.
great, yeah, that's a great point, Ted. Oh my gosh, I like that. Because yes, love each other as you love yourselves. Do unto others as you would do unto yourselves. But we have to have that love and compassion for ourselves.
And
in
that's
order,
the problem.
yes,
That is the
exactly.
problem, because we have been conditioned to
Yes.
what love for ourselves should look like. So I love
Yes.
myself when I'm this size, or when I
Right.
have this much money, or when I live in this house. I'm going to love myself.
Right.
But I love as
Period.
Christ loved the church,
Mhm.
and as God so loved us,
Yes.
right? That he
Mhm.
gave his son. Hello, for me to give up my child, I must really, I don't even know if there's a kind of love that would make me do that.
Right.
And so I feel like if that amount of love comes forward, in trying to break it apart, that unconditional love, when you go into Corinthians, it talks about what love is. That unconditional love doesn't say, I'm going to love you when you sound like me, look like me, or have the same job as me, or we have something in common even.
Mhm.
That amount of love just says, I'm going to love you, period.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And no
And
matter what you do, that was the tremendous thing. Again, what Jesus said when they were crucifying him, forgive them because they know not what they do. He still loved them. He still loved the people who persecuted him. And wow, that is not easy to do. But let me tell you something. Everyone's in a different place in their journey.
Right.
And the way I look at it is, if I'm a senior in high school, am I going to look at the little kindergartners and just go, oh, you're so dumb? No, I mean, like, oh my gosh, you're so adorable. And one day you will be a senior as well. We take people where they are in their journey and we love them. And sometimes their fear or maybe their self-loathing come out to try to hurt you. And it doesn't mean you put up with it, but it means you love them, and you send them on their way.
Right.
And that's a tough thing to do. That's the revolutionary love, and that's that other that we talked about last month, the looking at the other and the wonder. God,
Wonder. Yeah.
work on that love.
And then Ed Tansey says, any action or message that is not love is not of Jesus.
Right.
And Miss Vargas, loving your book, Ted Untwisted.
Untwisted, that book.
That book. Okay, a little plug for you there.
It'll change your life, y'all. All right,
I
so
haven't
we are
read it.
getting the red from Rich. Rich is trying to keep us on point.
Yes.
Guys, so we need to wrap it on up. Thank you
But
so
there's
much,
so
you
much.
guys. Oh my gosh, we could really dive so deep into
Go.
this person that we call Jesus the Christ. He is just the most beautiful energy center and the great example of how we can go into forgiveness when others do to us. We can step into compassion for them, even though they're in their story and going through their journey. We can go into forgiveness. And
Mhm.
I don't remember it saying anywhere in the Bible that Jesus shouted it from a bullhorn that said, forgive them, you know, but it was something very personally that he did and said, forgive them, because they really
Yes.
don't know what they're doing. And it was just that prayer that is the great example that I'm taking away from this conversation. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Thank you for all that was engaged in this conversation. Oh my goodness. Look at all these people. You guys are so beautiful. I
I
just love
know.
it. I
Zoom.
just
There's
love it.
Zoom after. So if you want to
There is a
continue.
Oh
Zoom
yeah.
after, you guys. We got to get together and talk and get to
Yes.
know each other and just really, really unbox this idea of revolutionary love and what Jesus stood for. I think it's going to really make such a very rich and exciting conversation.
Mhm.
Thank you so
Happy
much.
Easter.
Empathy.
Yes, happy Easter.
Viz said empathy, empathy, empathy. Happy Easter, everybody. Thank you guys so much. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I really appreciate the fact that you guys coming with us on this journey as we dove into just even a scotch of it when we start to unpack what Jesus is about. So the Zoom discussion is coming afterwards. You want to join our Zoom meeting. The meeting app ID is there, and the password is spiritual with a capital S. We're going to be posting that into the chat so that that way you guys can join us for that conversation afterwards. And I wanted to say a very special thanks to Rich for keeping us on and helping us get this ball rolling the way he did. He's just so cool. Nobody ever sees him, but I just want to say thank you so much. And so what is next, Rich, on the agenda? We are going to be sharing our gifts, and we do have an affirmation that goes with this. So we just wanted to say a big, big thank you and shout out to all who have ever given to the Center for Spiritual Living Ocala and who continue to give. And no matter what you give, we just appreciate every single part of that. And of course, we as a center also give back to the greater community. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much. And you can make it super easy. The text to tithe is one of the things that I use when I'm in New York, and it works beautifully. You're going to text to 352-320-5100, and that is going to just put in the amount, and it just sends it right to us. And I really appreciate that. So let us do our sharing our gifts together. It is the nature of life to give of itself, as it is the tree's nature to bear fruit and the flower's nature to bloom. It is my nature to share the gifts of my time, talent, and treasure. I participate in the divine flow of life, giving generously and receiving abundantly. I am blessed and I am a blessing. I am grateful. And so it is. And you can also go to cslocala.org/donate and do it on PayPal as well. Let's see if there's any other comments here that I should be saying. Yes. Also, Corinne Dean is in charge of our marketing, and she sends out our newsletter. And she has been sending an email out to everyone with the login info, as well as some of the things that are going on at CSL Ocala. And also, I believe Corinne is going to be getting that article to you guys, the one that I read at the very beginning there about Eastern religious science by Reverend Joe and Tony Nemec. So I can't wait to really get that to everybody. All right, so the prayer for protection now. The light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, love is, and all is well. I'll see you guys next week when Reverend Cindy is back. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care.